Hi everyone, this is Patrick Kelly from Stokes Nature Center again, and today we're going to be out on the Green Canyon Trail. And today we're starting in King Nature Park, which is a public park of North Logan City. And we're right here at the little pond we have at the beginning of the lake. In this pond you can fish, it's stocked. There's also a lot of really great plants, aquatic plants, and insects like dragonflies that you can use that iNaturalist app to catalog and be able to identify what exactly it is. And so today we're going to be starting off here in King Nature Park and just walking up the trails. And here in Green Canyon Trail, one thing to really pay attention to is it is a shared trail between hikers, runners, and mountain bikers. And so you always want to be able to be ready to step off the trail whenever possible to make way for those who are moving faster than you. But let's go ahead and get started and find some cool things. So when you start off hiking in Green Canyon, really soon you'll find a nice fork. I always like to take the left fork because it takes you through some more shade. There's also some great Rocky Mountain juniper, and on these Rocky Mountain juniper you'll also see they have these small little berries. And these berries aren't like regular berries that you'll get every single year. Sometimes it takes up to 3 years for these berries to mature on the tree, and you can eat them. They're not too good, they're kind of woody and spicy, but some people do enjoy them. I don't though. Other common plants you'll find out here is common sagebrush, which is really easy to identify and really great smelling if you just grab a swatch off of that. You can rub it in your hand and it smells really great. And also we have lots of grasses, big-tooth maples, things like that. So while you're hiking you may come across these big burn scars that are out here. These aren't from this year. Fires aren't allowed out in Green Canyon except in designated fire areas by the Forest Service. Every year, the Forest Service is trying to rehabilitate this area, so they're cutting back these Rocky Mountain junipers that historically weren't this far down in the canyon to maintain mule deer habitat. So if you come across a burn like this, know that it's not from this year, it's still safe to go on. But what the Forest Service does is they have specialized wildland firefighters who will come out, cut down that juniper, make a brush pile, wait for it to age, and then when the water content in the atmosphere is just right, they'll set fire to these. As you can see, this was a really expert burn. Nothing got outside of this circle for this tree, and that's some really, really professional firefighting and fire management right there. So as you hike along, you'll come to this old foundation, and this old foundation likely was a part of a sawmill that was up here in Green Canyon. When permanent Euro-American settlers came from the east and settled here in Cache Valley, all of the lumber for building up Logan back then came from up here in Green Canyon, and so they likely had a mill up here so they could just split it into boards right away. So out here in Green Canyon or elsewhere out when you're hiking, you might find rocks with this orange covering on it. This is actually a symbiotic relationship between 3 or 4 different species of entirely different kingdoms. It's a fungi that provides the skeletal structure, it's an algae that helps photosynthesize or break down nutrients, and it's a bacteria that helps fixate nitrogen and other processes, as well as sometimes there'll be yeasts that are in there, which is another type of fungus. But this particular orange one is called an elegant orange fungus, and they're most oftentimes found in places where animals are depositing nitrogen, usually through their feces or urine. And so if you're looking for where maybe a ground squirrel or a bird of prey might be perching, keeping an eye out for either predators or prey, look for these elegant orange lichens that are usually on these raised rocks, and you're likely to find where a lookout tower might be for one of these local creatures. So this species right next to me is called a great mullein. Mullins are a species of plants you can find all over the United States, but these here obviously are quite tall. I'm about 6 feet, so this guy's got me beat. But my favorite thing about mullins is how soft the leaves are. If you ever need a tissue or anything in the outdoors, definitely go for a mullein. It's nice and soft. It feels like a puppy's ear. It's beautiful. So here's another common plant you might encounter. It's called yarrow. The scientific name is Achillea millefolium, which just means hundreds of leaves. And what's really special about this plant is that it's a really powerful historically used medicinal plant. And so the leaves would be used in teas to reduce pain, and also if you have a sore tooth, you can chew on the root and it'll help numb that pain around where you're chewing on that root. Other than that, it's a really important pollinator plant. You can see there's all these different flowers that make it a really good food source for those pollinators. And it's a really important pioneer plant. So you'll see it here in this burn area where there's not a whole lot of else that can take root. And so these guys will move into areas that are recently cleared or burned. Elsewhere in town, you might see some yarrow that have yellow flowers. That's a European species of yarrow that's used in ornamental gardens and things like that. The wild yarrow we have out here throughout the United States is white, and if you go into some northern latitudes or up in altitude, you might get some pink in those flowers too. So if you go just a little bit off trail, you might find some cool things, like I just found this snake shed. We do have snakes out here in Green Canyon and elsewhere in the mountains. If you do find artifacts like this, be sure to leave it where it is, including bones or antlers, because the animals out here use it and the land breaks it down so the nutrients go back into the environment. But that's all I have for Green Canyon for you today. If you'd like, the canyon goes about 7.5 miles back all the way to a yurt that you can access in the winter and in the summer. And I don't have the stamina for going 7.5 miles today, but it's a challenge by choice. Just make sure however far you go out, you've got enough juice to get back. But this is a beautiful hike that's right here, just at the edge of town. Again, you start at North Logan Park, King Nature Park, which is a public park. There's free parking, there's restrooms, there's water, and you can come on out here and have a good time exploring.